With Xenoblade Chronicles 3's DLC, Shulk, Rex, and Alvis will be returning to the narrative as pivotal characters. Last time, we covered why I love Shulk as a character. But today, let's talk about my favorite Xenoblade MC, Rex. Now, a while ago, I covered a lot of his early development and why I found it so compelling. Today, I want to talk about what elevates him to the heights as one of my favorite video game MCs out there. Let's talk about why Chaosaurus Rex is the best. Brief recap. Rex is an idealistic optimist. Xenoblade 2's main theme is all about being able to move on from the past, to learn from it, and work towards a better tomorrow to achieve your dreams. Rex, being an idealistic optimist, is the ideal MC pairing for this theme. Why is that? It's very simple. His ideals and optimism can be and are tested against the trauma, hatred, and other emotions of the other characters throughout the story. Amalthus and his nihilism, Jin and his drive to destroy the world, and have one last moment with his beloved Lore, Nia and her identity crisis, Pyra and Mithra regaining hope and their self-value, Klaus and his sense of failure. These are the key character dynamics upon which Rex bounces off of and has his entire character tested against. And Monolith does what Monolith does best, subverts your expectations to tell a better story. A more generic story would do one of two things. One, have Rex interact with these characters and ignore their trauma and mental turmoil, and just preach optimism repeatedly using various shonen protag speeches to do so. Eventually, they would come around and they would fight for good and friendship, blah blah blah. Two, Rex would lose his idealism and become pessimistic. But Monolith being Monolith are amazing at using their protagonist to convey their theme and message that they are trying to tell with the game. Rex hones his optimism. He doesn't have the answer to everyone's problem initially. He even has his own doubts and worries, but with a little bit of hope, he's able to keep going to find Elysium in this dying world of all rest. He doesn't disregard others' plight. He becomes realistic. He understands where these characters are coming from and uses that understanding to refine his optimism to where he no longer is blindly striving for Elysium. He wants a better world filled with understanding for one another. He internalized the questions that Jin posed to him, but he didn't disregard them. He recognized, hey, I don't have these answers, and I really should have these answers if I'm going to walk the path that I'm walking. And the point of the story, and his story specifically from this point on, transitions from Anime Squad tries to find Elysium, to Rex trying to find those answers, and to become a better person who understands the way the world works, but doesn't give up his own desire for a better world. Because this story gets dark, and it shows the dark underbelly of humanity. And as the game introduces these more darker concepts, the story subtly transitions from Rex wanting to reach Elysium to solve all of his issues, to Rex wanting himself and humanity to solve them together. He still wants to reach Elysium, but he's no longer naive to the way the world works, and that is the central kernel to his character that makes him such a compelling protagonist to me. Because it is the way that it all culminates for me that makes him elevate to the ranks of some of the MC GOATs out there. So let's talk about one of my favorite scenes in Xenoblade Chronicles 2. Let's go to Tantal. So Rex gets 3-stalked by Jin's Flesh Eater form as Malus hypes his boy up from the sidelines. Pyra threatens to Kamehameha herself to save Rex, and Rex is left with a broken sword. Lost, Pyra and Mithra, and is left dejected and broken. His optimism is gone because his hope is gone. And this is one of the key points to a character, meant to be a hopeful, idealistic optimist. If their state of being is never challenged or brought to the brink, it can feel gimmicky or unwarranted. Here, though, Rex lost. It's the worst case scenario for him. His own weakness led to Pyra and Mithra being captured by Torna, and all he could do was lay there and watch. Like Shulk, who had to watch Metal Face make a Fiora kebab. He wakes up in the inn, and then this is when his mentality snaps. He lost his will, believing that if he exited just stage left, everyone he cares about would be better off because he views himself as the weakest link. Nia, Bridget, and Poppy continue to challenge him on this, trying to instill upon him what he did for all of them. Their dynamic comes full circle. What he has taught them, they now have to reteach to him. Poppy does the best job of getting through to him, funnily enough, as she continues her own little subplot of gaining humanity. But he still has no real hope to salvage his situation until Zeke goes Ultra Chad and says his father wants a word. The king tells him about the third Aegis sword, and Rex finally has a little spark of hope, from which Rex creates an inferno, reigniting his old character. Rex is back and is another key to why Xenoblade protags can be so compelling to me. And this is the key. Rex would not have been able to have this moment and this about face on his own. The team dynamic is a key one in Xenoblade games, and as a team, each of them has to help prop up the others, especially when they're down. Rex isn't alone anymore. This isn't the beginning of the game when he's back alone on the back of Gramps. And by himself, he would have given up hope. But he only comes around because the characters around him are able to give him hope again and respark that fire in his heart. He's not some superhero. Okay, look, at least before the third Aegis sword comes into play. He can't just overcome all this by himself. He needed the help of those around him and those he helped along the way. He had to relearn his optimistic message that he had instilled in others, and this is shown when he manifests his own third Aegis sword, his own Monado. It's a symbol of his new reignited will that will not falter for the rest of the game, and that is enough to break through to Pyra and Mithra and give them a reason to keep on going. Another aspect of Xenoblade protagonists that Rex utilizes to a highly effective degree is coming full circle. Take the third Aegis sword. The game began with Rex dying, and Pyra had to give him, essentially, access to being the Aegis's driver. She had to give him access to her sword, to save him. But now on the cliffs of Mortitha, he has to save them by manifesting essentially his own Monado, and they have to accept walking by his side from now on. It all comes full circle. The overall dynamic of Rex as a character completely changes from this moment on in the story. But let's talk about the Mortitha bit first. Before this point in the story, before he's able to manifest his third Aegis sword, he always takes a little bit of a back seat compared to Mithra and Pyra. In a lot of ways, sure, he fights, and sure, he takes the initiative from time to time, but it's clear that he's always in this learning phase where he's still trying to learn and understand the power at his disposal and how to properly utilize it. He realized he subconsciously was exactly like the people Jin despised. Yes, he cared for Pyra and Mithra, but he was using them to try and achieve his own end, one way or the other. He wasn't walking with them, he was walking his own path. From this moment on, he no longer feels like he's walking one step back behind Pyra and Mithra, feels like he's walking side by side, if not taking the lead. He has essentially become the master driver at this point. Think about how Chapter 2 starts. After the events of the Monoceros, and awakening Pyra, he awakens in Pyra's lap on Gormott. Well, what happens at the beginning of Mortitha? Mithra awakens in his lap. I know it's a small detail and many people may have missed it, but this is another example of Xenoblade 2 coming full circle in some form or fashion. At the beginning, it was Pyra and Mithra protecting him. Now it's him protecting them. He is finally caught up in a way where he's able to help them out in a real practical manner, not just in an idealistic sense. Up to this point, it was always the impression of him and others that Pyra and Mithra were far more powerful than they could be right now, that he was holding them back. That is no longer the case here. His will was finally made manifest and solidified. By manifesting the third Aegis sword, his own Monado, his will does not falter for the rest of the game. Okay, there's one scene in the Cloud stream you could argue, but we'll get to that. Plus, I've already covered it. But I find more often than not, some of the most compelling scenes for protagonists, especially characters I would categorize as optimists or idealists, are the scenes in which their optimism and ideals are challenged on a fundamental level, where they are thrown up against a wall and all hope seems to be lost. How do they respond? How do they pull themselves out of it? Do they even pull themselves out of it? And the scenes like in Tantal and the Spirit Crucible, and in Mortitha, both the cliffs and in Mortitha proper, show Rex at his best. Someone who is willing to admit he is wrong, willing to admit he can improve himself. And time again, he has to learn that there isn't a singular finish line. The third Aegis sword wasn't something he could go and collect, like he did in Spirit Crucible. It shattered and turned into dust, like a Thanos snap had just gone off for it. It has to come from within. It's not going to be some exterior force that swoops in to save the day. He has to be the one willing to confront the reality of humanity and the human condition, and to be willing to walk away from it, staring all the horrors in the face and say, you are worth protecting, that there is value in humanity. value in a better tomorrow and to strive for it. That was why he was able to manifest the third Monado. He had people he wanted to protect, people he wanted to safeguard, and a tomorrow that he wanted to fight for. Despite being on the brink, once he was able to get a little bit of hope, he was able to take it and run with it, before that despair and desperation consumed him, like it did with Jin and like it did with Malos. He's far more confident after becoming the Master Driver, unlocking the manifesting the third Aegis sword. He's far more confident as a character. And this overall moment marked a massive shift in the story's direction and tone from here. And when we next talk about Rex, we will cover how the Jin scene and the World Tree overall caps off his character, and how everything comes full circle, how every lesson in Jmull he had to learn up to this point is utilized to conclude his story in an extremely satisfying manner. So I'm going to call the video there for the day. Thank you for tuning in. My pleasure making the video. If you enjoyed it, please leave a like and subscribe. It really helps the channel out and helps support future content, and I greatly appreciate it. Stay safe out there, buddy. Have a great day. Hit the bell icon to be notified when I upload in the future. Leave a comment down below with your thoughts and your opinions on Rex as a whole. Did you like him as a protagonist? Did you not like him? Did you come around to it at some point? Let me know. I'd love to hear your thoughts and hear your opinions. Stay safe out there, buddy. Have a great day. Go play some video games if you can, and I'll see you all next time. Bye-bye, everybody.